featured performer alongside of Emily Yap Chua at Randolph in a concert that featured a wide range of works from female composers and generally put a spotlights on women's stories and women's rights. Can you speak a little bit more about that experience?
Sure, yeah. I was excited to be asked to do this recital at Randolph. So Emily is a wonderful pianist, solo pianist and collaborator, and she's the chair down there at Randolph College in the music department, and she invited me to do this recital with her. They have this initiative where they have to program a certain number of works by women and by people of color on every single concert they do, which is a wonderful thing. It's also not that hard to do. I mean, it's just one of these things where if you don't make that effort, it can so easily become programs of dead white men.
Absolutely.
And that's just kind of the way it's always been. And so even though it's so easy to find these wonderful pieces by diverse composers, having that initiative, I think, is a really amazing thing because it gets people thinking. And so there were two composers specifically that I was really interested in working with. One of them is Melissa Dunphy in Philadelphia, and I contacted her, and I was really drawn to her pieces based on texts of Nikita Gill, specifically kind of the song cycle that reflected somebody's journey through trauma and healing. And then the very last movement is a trio called Me Too, and really powerful text. And so I included that on the recital, and I also was really interested in Nilu Nurbakhsh, who is an Iranian composer, who I heard her work at the Song Slam competition, and it was a beautiful setting of Pablo Neruda texts. So I was really interested in what else she had, and she also had a lot of pieces that were based on, current events, and so she had this really powerful aria based on the Muslim ban, and this very resistance aria based on that. And then she also was writing an opera based on her experiences in Iran and sort of fleeing Iran because of the violence in the 2008 presidential election there and during the protests. So we talked a little bit about which piece to do, and I just thought the recital was going in a direction of really bringing to light things that were happening now, and the violence and the protesting that's happening in many different countries over many different issues. So we decided to put the aria, one of the scenes from the opera, We the Innumerable, from her opera, on the program as well. And then I also put on the Strauss Ophelia Lieder, and the recital started to take shape sort of like women's struggles and how they cope with these different events and things. So I put the Ophelia on there, and I put the Kurt Weill Seven Deadly Sins, a couple movements of that. And then Emily brought to my attention these lighter, kind of sweeter stories that were set to music by Liana Kirchhoff. And so we put those on there as sort of like the relief, because everything was very heavy and very, very dark. But it was an amazing thing. I love working with living composers, and so being able to chat with Nilu and Melissa about these pieces and be able to now, having a lot of students that are interested in new music, guide them to these composers that they've never heard of, because they're just now getting into that world of oh, this is a thing. I can actually be singing music that is being written right now. So it was a great thing for me to be involved in that initiative, and then also to get to know these composers a little better, and to bring, shed a little bit of light on the things going on.
Sure. No, that's absolutely awesome. Can you comment on what you think that the progress that, I guess not just necessarily contemporary music, but just kind of the music community, what sort of progress you think that it has done to this point to be more inclusive, featuring women composers, women performers, or anything like that? On the composer side, clearly, just because that's more my field, I know that there could be a lot more effort made to make sure that more women composers and people of color's compositions are featured. I guess I don't know a whole lot about, say, the performance side, even for vocalists or for even trumpet players or anything like that. What sort of dominance there is as your white male kind of field, or versus women versus people of color and diversity in general.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Unfortunately, I don't think we're where we want to be, but I do notice a lot of initiatives like this and a lot of scholarships and grants and organizations trying to promote music by women and by people of color. But I think it's still a struggle. I mean, even when we're putting together our program for last night, I mean, we're sitting there trying to pick, because we have pieces written by women, but we happened to not put those on the program last night, and for all these other reasons. Like, it wasn't for any specific reason, but when it comes down to it, it's something that takes that extra effort to make sure that you're just mindful of that, because there's also, when you're putting together a traditional recital, there's all this amazing repertoire that you want to perform for various reasons, and then you look at it and you're like, well, what am I really saying when I present this recital? And so I think we're finally getting to a point where we're kind of aware of that, and now that I have this position at Longy and thinking about future programming and what operas are we going to put on, and trying to diversify a little bit and think outside the box. And I think specifically Longy is doing a really good job of pushing the envelope in that direction, and hopefully other music schools will do the same, so that when the students graduate, they will already be of that mindset, and they're not of that mindset only when they've encountered people in the field, but like in school is where I think that should happen. And so things like the Randolph Initiative and what Longy is doing, and I think a lot of schools are probably doing the same thing, but I think the more that happens, the better.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I feel like a lot of that is about planting those seeds, because that kind of change is always going to be something that's going to be a long game, and something that's going to have to be gradual, but you have to put in that work and not see the immediate progress, but know and hope that's going to be something that's going to have its benefits and rewards like decades later, and to try to set that sort of change the mentality around that sort of conversation, which is always going to be kind of a slow thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome.